Consumer confidence dropped slightly in July, a sign that Americans are feeling a bit more pessimistic about the economy and labor market.
The latest data from the Conference Board shows a drop of 1.4 points to 90.8. Consumer surveys mainly referenced rising food and grocery prices. Comments about oil and gas costs eased slightly from the previous month. Concerns about jobs and unemployment, though, increased.
Todd Blanche's nomination to become President Trump's attorney general is facing new uncertainty on Capitol Hill. Republican Senator John Cornyn said today the Justice Department has not followed up on his demand that the so-called anti-weaponization fund be formally eliminated. The pool of money was set aside to award people who claim they were wronged by the Justice Department, which could possibly include people convicted in the January 6th Capitol attack. Blanche has insisted the fund is dead, but Cornyn and Senator Thom Tillis want written assurances before voting in favor of advancing his confirmation out of the Judiciary Committee. The committee is scheduled to vote on Blanche's nomination Thursday. Without support from Cornyn and Tillis, the nomination can't advance. There's another incident of gun violence in Lewiston last night.
This follows two other reports of shootings in the city just since Sunday. Christian Lee live this evening in Lewiston with how that community is reacting now. Hi, Christian.
Hi, Brian and Bailey. I'm in front of the Lewiston Police Department where, as you mentioned, another investigation into gun violence is underway. Now, I spoke to members of the community and they say that this needs to change. This is the third reported shooting incident that we've heard of in Lewiston over the past 3 days. You're currently looking at video of the corner of Bartlett Street and Walnut Street where yesterday's shooting happened. 20-year-old Ethan Perea is charged with attempted murder after shooting another man in the leg. Lewiston police say the issue of gun violence can't be fixed by one department alone.
I think people look for the police to end this, and we're not going to end this as just the police department. It's going to take the community to end this, and elected officials. So hopefully we can all come together, get on some common ground, and make good decisions for the city of Lewiston and the state of Maine.
Now, Mayor of Lewiston, Carl Shaleen, and the police department told me that they're working together to find a solution, and they'll tell more details on that soon. Brian and Bailey.
Christian Lee live for us in Lewiston tonight. Christian, thank you. Lawmakers and cabinet officials mourning the loss of late Senator Lindsey Graham during a Capitol ceremony held just this morning.
Vice President J.D. Vance and Senate Majority Leader John Thune delivered tributes to the South Carolina Republican, where they paid respect to Graham's family and reflected on his legacy in the Senate. The 71-year-old died on July 11th following an aortic dissection at his Washington, D.C. home. Thune called Graham his friend and said, quote, "It's hard to think that there will be no more Senate dinners with Lindsey," while Vance hailed the late senator as a true American original who loved people.
So I choose to remember Lindsey Graham as a man who could disagree with you without being disagreeable. I choose to remember Lindsey Graham as a person who could fight with you on one issue, but fight for you on another issue. I remember Lindsey Graham as a man who loved people. And because he loved people, he was willing to reason with them, to respect them, and ultimately to persuade them.
Graham was also a fierce advocate for Israel and Ukraine, and leaders from both countries attended today's commemoration. President Trump also invited Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the White House.
He met with the two leaders for separate talks, which White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt described in a post on X as, quote, positive and productive. Zelensky said they discussed missile defense and diplomatic efforts in the Russia-Ukraine war. Zelensky also claims that Russia is helping Iran target U.S. bases in the Middle East. Meanwhile, a White House official said Netanyahu and President Trump were expected to discuss the war with Iran, the framework agreement for peace in Lebanon, and efforts to expand the Abraham Accords. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff all spotted in some of the photos shared on social media. The White House, however, has not released further information about what the leaders discussed.
Oil prices are showing overall declines amid signs the U.S. and Iran could restart ceasefire talks. Oil prices have dropped considerably in the past week or so. Gas prices are largely down too, but at a slower rate. Diesel, however, is still averaging more than $5.30 a gallon. That could be bad news for inflation since semi-trucks use that fuel to haul goods across the United States. The U.S. and Iran appear to be pausing strikes for now, but the situation remains precarious. Traffic in the Strait of Hormuz is at a trickle, and Iran-backed Houthi rebels are threatening an alternate oil route through the Red Sea. Maine Representative Jared Golden and 14 other Democratic veterans are calling for transparency from the Department of Defense over casualties in the Iran war.
It comes now after the names of 4 troops were removed from the official Iran war death toll. They write in part, the U.S. government owes U.S. service members, their families, and every American the truth about all U.S. casualties in the war with Iran. It is imperative that these reports are timely, accurate, and adequately explain the reason for amended or delayed reports.